The Democratic side's wide open, right? They don't control the White House. We're past the period of Clinton's, Obama's, Biden, right? Those three families, those three dynasties have taken up a lot of room. And now the question is, who's it going to be in 2028? And one of the great joys I have is covering presidential politics. One of the great frustrations I have is everybody thinks they know. And I'm here to tell you again, with humility and confidence, born from having done this for decades and having not only spent time with everybody who's become president during my career before they were president, sometimes well before, but also studying the history and saying, from Reagan forward, what does it take? What does it take to get the nomination and to win the White House? And I think there's one factor to me that is more important than any other one, and it's so underrated. And people say, oh, it's going to be Wes Moore, or it's going to be Governor Beshear of Kentucky. And I really think people are off track. People in the Democratic Party, and I say respect, I don't know if the Democrats are going to win or lose the White House. I don't know who they're going to nominate. But understanding the universe of possible people, my track record on that, again, I say with humility, it's pretty good. I don't always know who's going to be the nominee, but I generally know who's not going to be the nominee. And that's primarily because of this one factor, is who understands how to play at this level, what I call being part of the national conversation. People say, shocking that Donald Trump got the nomination. No way he could possibly get it. And if you go back and look at the record, I had a sense he could get it, because even though he wasn't in politics as a candidate, he was part of the national conversation for decades, meeting people, talking to voters, politicians, donors, activists, leaders in business. Having that experience gives you a base of knowledge and an understanding of the country, but it also gives you a sense of how to perform. Okay, so I want to talk about why I'm skeptical about some of the current Democrats who are talked about as possible candidates. But first, I want to show you what I consider kind of like the gold standard in some ways of this question of what does it take? Okay, people say, well, if you go back to the 2008 cycle, no one knew in 2005, which is the equivalent of the year we're in now in the 4-year cycle, that Barack Obama would be the nominee. So who could have possibly known? Many people, because when he was at Harvard Law School, when he ran for the Senate in 2004, when he gave the keynote address at the Democratic Convention in 2004, everybody said, this guy's a super talent. Maybe he won't win in 2008, but you couldn't rule it out that he could be the nominee, even up against Hillary Clinton and other people who were more established. He was part of the national conversation, not for decades. Policy, press, ideas. And I say to people all the time about Barack Obama, he did something in the period from 2004, when he gave that keynote address in Boston at John Kerry's convention, through 2008, when he beat Hillary Clinton and then beat John McCain. He had showed such great skills. And when I say to people, it's a simple 3-part test. Can you go on a late night comedy show? Can you go on Monday Night Football or some big sports venue? And can you go on a high profile news interview and ace them all? And I'm going to show you Barack Obama acing them all: the Today Show, Monday Night Football, and a late night comedy show, Letterman. And imagine Wes Moore or Governor Beshear of Kentucky or Gretchen Whitmer. Imagine them acing it the way Barack Obama did. Take a look.
So tonight, I'd like to put all the doubts to rest. I would like to announce to my hometown of Chicago and all of America that I am ready for the Bears to go all the way, baby. Dun, 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 dun.
Met the president? You must know the president.
Well, you know, he called me. He was very gracious after the election. He gave me a call, and we both agreed that we had married up. Mm-hmm. And then he invited me over to the White House, and we had breakfast with Dick Cheney and Karl Rove, and it was a real fun time.
Yeah, it sounds like.
I mean, again, you might not like Barack Obama. You might think he was a horrible president, but that's a star, right? That is poised in 3 different kind of venues. Now, some of these prospective candidates, maybe they could do well on the Today Show, or maybe they could do well on Monday Night Football or late night. But I don't see any of them. I wouldn't have confidence in any of the three of them at that level of performance. And it's likability, it's confidence, but it's also an understanding of what these different venues are. And of course, now today there are way more venues than there used to be. There's this program, there's Megan's program. There's so many different programs people can go on, but you still have to understand the national conversation. You have to understand America. So we talk about some of the people who are discussed now as prospective candidates, and I'm gonna tell you about my skepticism. It extends to the whole field. Gavin Newsom will be here later. Arguably, of all the people talked about for running, the two Californians, Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris, are the two with the most experience in this realm, being part of the national conversation. Okay, so I'm least skeptical about them on that measure, although I'm skeptical about them both for other reasons. But all these other people, Governor Shapiro, Pennsylvania, Cory Booker, who's run before, they just don't have this level of experience, whether it's over a long period of time, like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, or a very concentrated way, like George W. Bush and Barack Obama. They just don't have that. So Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan, big state, talked about as a potential candidate for a while, talked about potentially being running mate for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And again, I got nothing against her. She's obviously a talented politician. Being able to get elected governor of Michigan, that alone is a huge feat. But the gap between even a mega state and running for president successfully, again, it's massive. Gretchen Whitmer knows a lot of people, I bet she thinks. Gretchen Whitmer thinks, well, I survived a lot of controversies, a lot of pressure situations. Case study, Gretchen Whitmer. COVID, she was governor during COVID. A huge test for anybody in elective office. A lot of pressure. Pressure from business, pressure from parents, pressure from public health officials. I watch Gretchen Whitmer closely. And again, I'm using her as a case study, but I think what I'm saying about her applies to everybody else who I see named as a possible candidate. Even Pete Buttigieg, who served in the cabinet. Okay? Here's Gretchen Whitmer during COVID. Okay? Couple things happened that just really stayed with me. First of all, Gretchen Whitmer's husband during COVID wanted to take his boat out, was against the rules to go take your boat out. Purported Northern Michigan boat launch request fuels controversy for Whitmer from the Detroit News. Then 108, New York Times. Okay? Michigan governor says husband request was, quote, failed attempt at humor. Her husband basically said, I'm going to get my boat out because I'm the governor's husband. Again, just bad judgment. You could say, well, that's a one-off. You know, he lost his head. He really wanted to go out in the boat. Also during COVID, Gretchen Whitmer decides, even though there's a travel ban, people say you shouldn't be traveling out of state. Gretchen Whitmer decided to travel out of state 3 times in 6 months during COVID, at least once to go visit her mom. Understandable. But this is not the ancient history. This was not that long ago. It's not just bad judgment, but it demonstrates a lack of awareness of what it takes to do this thing under excruciating pressure. Now, I will tell you something that hasn't been reported as far as I know. Donald Trump is incredibly interested in presidential politics generally. He's super interested in the 2028 race, and his bandwidth is crazy. You would think, well, he's got more other things to worry about as president. He does, but he's really interested in who's going to be the Republican nominee, probably J.D. Vance, who's going to be the Democratic nominee. And his interest is not passive. He wants to muck around in the Democratic race. He wants to be a player in figuring out who the Democrats are going to nominate. So Gretchen Whitmer, 3 weeks ago, goes to the White House to try to lobby for different things for Michigan, including support for this air base that needed some federal help. And the president, unbeknownst to her, horrible staff work for her team, brings her into the Oval Office. You've probably seen this photo, famous picture the New York Times took. Gretchen Whitmer's in the Oval Office, Trump signing executive orders attacking Democrats, okay, and going after his enemies, as many of the executive orders have. And she's in there, and Trump talks, praises her, whatever. She then somehow gets it in her head that she can make herself invisible by holding a blue folder up to her face. So she holds the blue folder up to her face. It produced one of the most humiliating political photographs I can recall seeing, because she's there in the Oval Office trying to hide the fact that she's in there with Donald Trump. Okay, so that was bad. Now, flash forward to 3 weeks later, and Trump's going to Michigan to celebrate 100 days in office, give a big speech. She didn't go to that. She did greet him, though, when he arrived in the state on the tarmac in Michigan. as governors do, even if the president's from the other party. And once again, snookered by Donald Trump. He comes down the steps of Air Force One, you can see here, and you see Gretchen Whitmer puts out her hand to get a handshake, and Trump hugs her. And he hugs her in a way that she can't avoid hugging him back, patting him a couple times on the shoulder. Now, some people say, well, that's great for her, right? That's great because it shows that she's helping to fight for her state. Then later at the event, Trump introduces her, and she's not expecting to speak, but once again, bad staff work. She's tricked into speaking. Listen to how awkward it is, where she basically thanks Trump without saying his name.
I want to thank you very much, Gretchen. Good job. Thank you.
I hadn't planned to speak, but I'm on behalf of all the military men and women who serve our country and serve so honorably on behalf of the state of Michigan. I am really damn happy we're here to celebrate this recapitalization at Selfridge. It's crucial for the Michigan economy. It's crucial for the men and women here, for our homeland security and our future. So thank you. I'm so grateful that this announcement was made today. And I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Okay, so if Gretchen Whitmer ends up running for president, the blue folder in front of her face, the handshake, the awkward remarks, it may not matter. She's putting herself in the same camp as Governor Newsom, saying, I'm fine with being nice to Trump when it's in my state's interest. But what I see here is not just bad staff work, but not playing at the level required to get through the gauntlet. Now, somebody's going to get through the gauntlet, and if I'm right that they're all pretty weak, like a second grade soccer league, even if all the teams are bad, somebody wins the championship. But my caution here, my main message on this is, if you think that it's easy to run for president, and if you think being successful as a governor or senator or a business person is enough, it's not. Have you been in the national conversation? Have you been talking to people about America? And I don't see it in Gretchen Whitmer, but I don't see it in almost any of these other people. And I think Donald Trump is going to do his best to muck around and embarrass and humiliate and taunt all the Democrats to try to figure out how he can weaken the entire party so his chosen candidate, which I think will be J.D. Vance, will work.